Hi guys, I'm back again with another movie review. Last night I was fortunate enough to watch, I didn't get to watch Family Portraits, but I did get to watch Audition. Finally, it took me a really long time. As I said, it's, sorry, the box is unlocked. It's directed by Takashi Miike, who coincidentally also directed Imprint, which I will be reviewing soon. When the movie starts, I guess I should say this movie, this review will contain spoilers. If you don't want to know, don't watch the review. Okay, without further ado, here we go into the review. When the movie starts, it's with a man, and he's in a hospital with his wife. She's obviously dying. It shows a young boy coming down a hallway with the project and "Get well soon, Mommy." The doctors pronounce her dead. The son comes in. He says, "I made this for Mom." The husband kind of turns around, looks at his son. Then it shows them walking together. And then the movie is 7 years later. The son is obviously older now. The father has just been engrossed in his work. He's not looked to get into another relationship of any kind. And his son kind of makes a comment to him at dinner that he seems very dispirited and that he needs to remarry. So he starts mulling the idea over. He goes to meet with a friend of his who happens to be a movie producer of some sort, or a television producer. And the television producer says, "I've got it all covered for you. I'll find a girl that you want." Because he says that basically he wants someone who has a talent of some kind, because people that have a talent of their own are usually not unhappy people, and he doesn't want someone that has to rely on him for everything, because then they'll just end up unhappy. So there's an audition. The director sends him all of these girls, tells him to pick 30. And there's one picture and one essay from one girl in particular that he's just enamored with. So they interview the girls. It finally comes to her, and, you know, he's just totally enamored with her. He takes over the interview process, and when she leaves, his friend says, "I don't like her. There's something about her I just don't trust." The man doesn't understand why, but he's still determined he's going to meet with her. So he calls her, they arrange a meeting, they go, they have a meal together, learn a little more about each other. You find out, oddly enough, that the girl, some of the information that she has given them when she comes to the audition is inaccurate. And, like, for example, she says that the person who represented her worked for a music agency, and she gives them their name, and you find out that the person, and I'm sorry, my nose is itching, you find out that the person that was actually the movie producer has gone missing, and he's been missing for a while. And then, of course, warning bells, you know, start sounding in your head. It doesn't deter the guy. He's still determined. He meets with her again. The only thing he does, and I'm so sorry, my nose is just itching today. I think it's the weather. He goes to meet with her again, and he tells his friend, "She's the one. This is who I want." And his friend says, the producer, "Just do me a favor. Wait a while to call her. Just don't call her right away." So he promises, and then it shows her sitting in a room with a burlap sack, just hunched over, looking at the phone. And so he doesn't call, and he doesn't call, and he doesn't call. And then days later, he finally can't take it anymore, and he calls her. And when he does, you see that burlap sack move as if something is inside. And you go, okay, something's not right here. He calls her. They meet again. They begin a quasi-relationship. And then eventually he decides he's going to propose. He plans a romantic weekend with them together. They go. And, of course, as you go through this, you learn that obviously the girl has a tragic past. She was into ballet. Some bad things happened in ballet. She says it's her hips, but you find out it's far worse, an atrocity of child abuse that she has suffered. And so they go. He wants to take her out to all these places. Instead, she removes her clothing. She climbs into bed. She says, "Come to me." He goes to take his clothes off, and she says, "No, wait, I just want you to see me." He sees some scars on her legs, which come into play later, and you learn where they come from. And so he sees that. They make love. The next morning he wakes up. She's gone. He can't find her. He goes to his producer friend trying to get her address. He can't get her address. Can't find her anywhere. So he goes to this place that she told him that she once worked. When he gets there, he finds out that the person that owned the place, and at that point you don't know who the person is, was murdered brutally and chopped into pieces. And that, oddly enough, the police not only found the body of the person, but an extra 3 set of fingers, an ear, and a tongue. And that's when you find out that the owner of the bar was a woman, and that she was dating a music executive who is, oddly enough, if you think about it, the one went missing, and here's the girl that, was dating a music executive who's been murdered, and their extra body parts, and warning bells sound even more. The man goes home. just before he does, you see a scene with someone going through his home. They go into his bedroom, see a picture of his deceased wife, and then you see this person go to his bottle of scotch because he has it every night before he goes to bed. And he comes home, he gets the scotch, he takes a drink, notices immediately something isn't right. He goes to stand up and ends up falling ass over. A girl comes in, and literally just bad shit happens. It's a slow build, and I enjoyed that. I didn't have a problem with that at all. I thought that it added depth to the movie. It makes what occurs to him all the worse. But when they're in the bed together, and I didn't mention this, you know, when she tells him, I want you to see me, she tells him, I want you to love me and only me. And of course, again, morning bound sound. I looked at my husband and we were both like, love only me, you know, he's got a son. So, anyhow, when you go back to the scene with him, you see someone opening, he can see her, and she's got these plastic gloves, and she's all gloved up, basically, as you can see in this picture. And when she opens the door, they have a beagle, and you can see the beagle is just dead on the floor. And she comes in, and she basically tells him, you're just like everybody else. All you want is sex. You know, I've given you something to paralyze you. You're not going to be able to move. She then has her syringe. She lifts his tongue, and I'm sure she injects it under the tongue because that makes medicine travel faster through your body. And she tells him that you're not going to be able to move, but you're going to be able to feel everything. This is going to sensitize your nerves so you can enjoy the pain, embrace the pain. She pulls out some needles, starts going to town on his stomach with them, and the creepy part is she keeps, and it's in Japanese, and it's subtitled, but she keeps going da-dink, 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 but in Japanese she's saying deeper, deeper, and so she keeps doing it, and she does the same thing under his eyelids. He's squirming, yelling, and at this point his son is visiting a friend, so his son isn't home. And so she does that. Then she goes and she takes a clamp, puts it around both of his ankles, and then pulls out a wire saw. And she says this will cut through flesh. And you actually learn about the wire saw earlier in the movie. I don't want to ruin too much. But she pulls out the wire saw, wraps it around his leg, his foot. And, you know, because she says you can't truly love me if you don't truly need me. And she proceeds to, and it's probably the goriest part of the movie, proceeds to saw his foot off. Just as she does that, she's moving to the next one. The son comes home. He knows something's going on. The father then lapses, and this is what's kind of confusing, but the father then lapses. He wakes up, and he's back in the room, and she's not left him. And she says, I accept your proposal. And he keeps going, what proposal, what proposal? And he's just sitting there going, God, you know, what the hell dream was that? But then you find out it wasn't a dream. He passed out. He had a dream of that. The son is still trying to get away from the woman. She proceeds to chase him up the stairs. He gives her a nice shot at the top of the stairs with a kick. She goes down, she breaks her neck, she falls, and she lands at an angle so she can see him. And she repeats lines to the movie from a dinner they had prior, in which she says, I waited so long for you to call. I didn't think that you would call. I need you to know everything about me and to love and accept me for who I am and whatever. And then the movie fades to black, and there you go. There's obviously more to the movie than that, but going into every specific detail would just take far too long, and it would make the review a lot longer than necessary. It wasn't what I expected, and my husband and I both agreed it's kind of like a Japanese fatal attraction in a way. It's not totally the same kind of thing, but it's kind of close. I mean, the girl has suffered some atrocities, and boy, she doesn't like men very much, which you soon learn. There's actually one scene in the film where the burlap sack in her apartment, which jumps, a man comes out of it. He's missing his tongue, he's missing an ear, he's missing fingers, and he crawls out, and he's hungry. He's asking for food. You hear someone retching, and then you realize it's her. She walks over with the dog dish of her vomit, and the guy eats it. Very attractive. So it's definitely a flick that messes with your head. You keep knowing something's going on, but you don't know exactly what it is. Very enjoyable. I don't usually enjoy watching subtitled movies, but in this I felt it was worth it, very much so. I really enjoyed the movie. So without further ado, I'm going to go into my ratings for Audition. The sexuality on this, I'm going to rate it a 2. There's one shot in an audition where a girl strips off her clothes, and so you get a little cleavage action. But even in the love scene, you don't see that much, so that's just a 2. There's not a lot of sexuality in it. The violence, I'm going to say a 4 out of 5. It's not overly violent, but it's violent enough, especially, you know, with the feet, which will lead me into the gore. The gore is hard again for me. I didn't think that it was overly gory, but when she goes into his leg, I mean, it shows the wire going into it, and the best part is when she's done, and the wire's all twisted, and she's holding it, she picks up his foot and just throws it into his glass door, and you see blood splatter and the foot fall down, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to give the gore 4 out of 5. And overall enjoyment, it's same. It's a 4 out of 5. Definitely a movie. I'm glad that I watched it. I'm glad that I have it in my collection. I thought it was very good. It isn't what you expect it to be totally, but it pulls a punch in its own way. There are moments, again, that are kind of slow, but they're necessary to advance the plot and for you to kind of get a better understanding. And what's bizarre about this movie is that, yes, you feel for the man, because, I mean, he's lost his wife, he's so excited, he thinks he's found someone new, but you feel for her as well, because all she's known are men that have abused her and used her for their own devices. So obviously, you know, she's messed up in the head too, so you can't help but feel sorry for her for that reason. So if you've not seen Audition, I do recommend it. You know, would I suggest that anyone else watch it? Well, if you're a fan of these kinds of flicks, I would say, yeah, you know, definitely give it a shot. Ironically enough, my movie stop had several copies of this used on sale. So if you have a movie stop in your area, maybe you can get one for yourself, and you won't have to pay as much as I did for my copy. So there's my review for Audition. I'm going to try to hurry. I have a couple of other movies that I need to review for today, and then I've got to get busy because I got to get making apple pie because it's Thanksgiving and it's time to do all the things for the kids, you know, all the things I'm obligated for. So I'm going to move on to my next review. I hope you enjoyed the one for Audition, and I'll be back soon. All right, okay? Bye.